From sunny Berkshire County, welcome to the GCN Show.
Welcome to the GCN Show.
Coming up this week, thanks to your donations, we can officially reveal that Dan will definitely be tackling his longest ever bike ride this year. The question is, how will he prepare for it? And has he bitten off more than he can chew? Can you actually ride 350 kilometres?
Anything's possible on a long-range e-bike, I would say, Si. Plus, we discuss the Premiership footballer who's trying his hand at pro cycling, the risk posed by cars versus bike following comment underneath last week's GCN show, and some good news coming out of NYC. This week in the world of cycling, we learned that the World Cyclocross Championships, which is coming this weekend, now has the duel we've all been waiting for.
Yes, Wout van Aert has thrown his hat into the ring at late notice, so will now go head-to-head against Mathieu van der Poel.
The elite women's race, meanwhile, well, it's anyone's guess, isn't it, as to who will emerge victorious there. But even if Mathieu van der Poel wins the men's race, while he'll equal the all-time world titles for men at 7, he will still be one behind Marianne Vos, who won her first senior world title 19 years ago.
That is crazy,
bonkers,
isn't it? Absolutely crazy. Right, we also learned this week that indoor training actually dates back to the 1890s.
Take a look at this. So it's a cast iron stationary bike, apparently in good working order, according to the advert, that's up for sale on Facebook Marketplace for $600. So according to the description, it would make, and I quote, a great addition to any antique exercise equipment collection.
Thing is, we want to know, can you Zwift on it?
I don't think it's a smart trainer, no.
Is it not? Okay, that's unfortunate. Right, finally, we learned that Dan is now officially going to be doing, or should I say, attempting the longest ride he's ever done. You lot have made donations to the Ambitious About Autism charity that have now got us over the magic £15,000 mark.
Rather interestingly, last week, you might remember there at home that Si said this.
Let it be known, Dan, that you will not get stuck on £14,999. I will see to it, personally, that that does not happen.
You can all stop donating now. Si's going to dip in his pocket for $5,500. Now, was it a coincidence that one day after Si said that, an anonymous donation of £5,000 was made that got us over the line?
Wow.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
It was, wasn't it, Si? It was a coincidence because there is no way you'd find more than a £5 in your pocket to donate, is there? So, my thanks, I think, to the very generous person who donated that £5,000, but also to everybody who donated. I can now also officially start training.
Yes. My thanks as well, very much. Now, you have got just under 5 months to prepare yourself, haven't you?
Good point. Have Orbea actually sent the e-bike over yet?
We are not doing that, Dan.
No, I know.
I've told you this.
Anyway, if you would like to join me on said ride, Rafa founder Simon Mocha and many others, there are still a few places left, so the sign-up link is in the description below this video.
Dan's looking for domestiques, basically, aren't you?
I am.
Right, back to the ride, though. We did have a brief chat about this at the coffee machine this morning, and the conclusion was that this is actually going to be a proper challenge.
It absolutely
isn't it?
is. Yeah. Let's be honest, though. That's the reason that I was put forward for this challenge, really, wasn't it? Firstly, because I'm the GCN presenter who rides the least, and second, by some margin, yeah. And secondly, because I'm the only GCN presenter who has never done a ride that long.
Indeed. Remind us what your longest ride is.
Well, I was looking it up earlier. So by distance, it's the 2009 Tour of Flanders.
Mic drop.
If you include the 7K neutral zone. That was 269 kilometres, I think.
OK, and by duration?
By duration, stage 16 of the 2009 Giro d'Italia.
Big year, 2009.
It was a big year, yeah. That stage was only 249 kilometres,
okay.
But it was quite mountainous. So I was on the bike for 8 hours and 17 minutes in total. The pain of that day is forever etched into my mind, Si.
It's no wonder you stopped riding.
Exactly. My time for the stage itself was a shade under 8 hours, but then we were told after the finish line that we had to ride back to the bottom of the mountain to get to the team bus parking. And then we had a 4-hour, 300k drive to the next team hotel. There were 2 saving graces that day, though.
Which are?
Firstly, my teammate, Carlos Sastre, name drop again, he won the stage.
Double mic drop.
And secondly, it was a rest day the next day, which I needed. In fact, I needed a rest week, if I'm completely honest.
To be fair, mate, that does sound absolutely brutal. I'm not surprised you've been resting ever since, really, haven't you?
It was brutal. It has scarred me.
Yeah.
So, tell me then, what's the longest ride that the other GCN presenters have done?
Well, let's do it in order, shall we? I topped the table.
And nobody likes to show off, Si.
I'm fine if you don't like me, Dan, but it doesn't change the fact that I top this leaderboard. 640 kilometres in 33 hours at the Further East Gravel event.
Impressive.
You might remember the GCN video. The slight caveat to this is that I did have a 2-hour nap in a sleeping bag in a field.
Oh,
during
well, I'm not sure that counts then.
Well, I mean, even if you divide it into two, it'd still be 320 kilometres, which is longer than your longest ever ride. But actually, I did make sure that I did 400 kilometres before I got into said sleeping bag, just in case this conversation were ever to happen. No, genuinely, well, not. I wasn't future-proofing this conversation, but I did go, 400 Ks, right, I think I can find a hedge now.
Time for a long nap.
Basically,
okay,
yeah.
I will let you have that one.
Okay. And now next up, Ollie claims that his longest ride was the fairly recent Monte Grappa Epic, which was 450 kilometres over 33 hours. Now, I say claims because I would say he's done a much longer ride than that, and one that eclipses certainly mine, just about everything, the Tour de Station a couple of years ago, where he did 1,000 kilometres in one hit, basically. But he seems to have wiped that one from his mind. Either that or he was so out of his tree by the end, he can't actually remember it.
No, you reminded him of it, didn't you?
Yes.
And he said, I forgot about that
Yeah.
one. But yeah, impressive nonetheless, wasn't it?
Very, yeah. Actually, watching the footage of him towards the end of that ride is painful, isn't it, to say the least. Then next up, we've got Connor. He did London to Holyhead, which is 450 kilometres. He also did the Donegal 555, or 450 kilometres of it.
Isn't that 555 kilometres, the Donegal 555?
If you make it to the finish line, which Connor did not.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we got Alex. His longest ride was actually with Ollie in Mallorca. They did a lap of the island, which, as many of you might know, is 312 kilometres, and it took them 10 hours.
And he was a broken man at the end of that, I seem to remember, wasn't he?
He was, yes, mainly because he lost 6 kilos in that 10 hours and was somewhat delirious at the end.
312. In fact, thinking about it then, unless Alex does an epic ride himself somewhere between now and the end of June, I will no longer be the GCN presenter who's done the shortest, longest ride by both distance and duration, will I?
Yeah, you're right. You will have pushed him into last position if you finish.
Yeah.
And that is the big question here, isn't it? Like, genuinely, how confident are you?
Well, let's say I'm apprehensive and nervous. Like 350 Ks doesn't sound that crazy, particularly when you reel off what you guys have done. But it's still a long way, isn't it? And also, by duration, it's probably going to be around 13 or 14 hours of riding time. 13 hours would be an average speed of 27 kilometres per hour.
Okay.
So I've got to bear in mind that although there will be groups to ride in, there's only a couple of hundred riders doing that, Manchester to London, and they're of varying ability. So it's not like I'm going to be swept along in a big peloton all the time, is it?
No, not like at the Giro d'Italia.
No.
Where you just sort of, got dragged round, basically,
The
didn't you?
gruppetto was quite small towards the end.
Yeah, so what we're saying is you might even have to take some turns on the front.
Oh, well, no,
yourself.
I wouldn't go that far, Si. I mean, the one thing I did learn as a pro was how to hide and save energy and fake suffering to get out and do my fair share of work.
You faked the suffering, did you?
Yes, well.
Yeah, you could have won all those big races, but instead you were just faking it at the back of the gruppetto.
I'll go with that, I think, yeah.
Also, I'm not sure that faking it and not doing your fair share is actually in the spirit of bike riding, generally.
Especially that ride, no.
Especially
it's
not
a fair
this one.
point. The ride, as you know, is raising money for the Ambitious About Autism charity. And the idea, I think, is that it's long enough and hard enough that at the end, you feel so exhausted, it gives you a small sense of what someone who's severely autistic feels like most of the time. So yes, I was joking on that front about hiding and not doing my fair share.
Yeah, OK, so next question then. Are you actually back on the bike?
I am back on the bike. So I did my first ride on Sunday, 29 Ks on Zwift.
Nice.
In 40 minutes.
Crikey.
It's a start.
Yeah.
One small step towards the big ride in June. And to answer your previous question, I will make sure that I finish that ride. I owe it to all the people who donated. I owe it to the other riders who are taking part because I've met a few of them, and there are some who've never done a ride longer than 100 Ks in their life. So if they can do it, there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be able to. And I also want to do it for myself, if I'm honest. It's going to feel like a big accomplishment and an achievement when I ride into London or get into London. Now, since you're an old hand at doing these long rides...
we say old hand? Can we say dab hand?
Okay,
dab hand?
Okay, since you're a dab hand at these long rides, do you have any advice for me for the day and the lead up?
Yes. So I think, obviously, you're already doing the main thing, which is getting back in the saddle, right? But I think the main thing is your mental sort of approach to it. So I'm always surprised by how much easier it is to ride long distances than I think it's going to be. Because if I go out and do a 100-kilometre ride, I can guarantee you now I'll be tired at the end of that 100 kilometres. But if I was to go and ride a 200-kilometre ride, I'd get through that 100 kilometres and I wouldn't feel tired. And I think part of that is because you pace it automatically better. And then also part of it is because mentally 100 k's isn't your finish line anymore. So I wouldn't be apprehensive about it. You will definitely do it. You know that, right? And then it's just a case of spending a bit of time on your bike so that you're not going to get uncomfortably sore when you're doing it. And then the basics, isn't it? It's eating and drinking and resting and Yeah,
I need to nail the nutrition hydration, and precision hydration will help with that, obviously, along the way with some sort of strategy. I'd rather not spend 5 hours every Sunday on my bike if I can help it. So I've got an initial strategy in my head, which will be basically trying to raise my FTP and get stronger on the bike so that 140 watts or whatever I aim to average on the day doesn't feel as hard. So let's say I'll get an FTP of 300 watts, 140 is not going to feel bad compared to if I had an FTP of 200, then 140 would be quite close to my max, wouldn't it? Yeah.
What you could also do is do your 5-hour rides on Wednesdays and call it work.
That is a very good idea, isn't it? Yeah, I'll speak to the bosses about that. Now, although we've reached the target of £15,000, I'd really love it at this point to raise more. So particularly on the day itself, which we'll be documenting, of course, on GCN, and also when the video of the ride comes out soon after.
Yeah, and fair play as well. We are all rooting for you here at GCN Megabase, and also I'm sure you lot at home.
Hopefully.
It's going to be great to see you back on the bike as well. So have you got a plan?
Yeah, like I said, sort of. I'm going to be documenting things as I start cycling again. I'm also going to try and to track my fitness, because I like doing that, to see, out of interest, how much I improve between now and June. And I'm also going to be talking about what it's like to get back on my bike in my mid-40s, which I kind of hope will resonate with quite a large portion of our audience.
Yeah, I think it will, absolutely. And I assume as well you're going to be using a rearview mirror now as well.
Well, you joke. I mean, I am sort of finding it a bit harder to look right round these days, to be fair.
That's your muscles, Dan. That's your newfound muscles that you've been working hard for in the gym.
They're crimping my shoulders.
Yeah, it's not old age. Just out of interest, by the way, what is your longest ride since you retired from racing?
Oh, I looked that up as well. It was Velo Birmingham. So that was a 100-mile sportive, which took me exactly 5 hours, almost to the...
There you go, yeah. I do remember that, actually. That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it?
7.5 years, yeah.
There you go.
I'm sure I've still got some residual fitness left over.
I'm
from
sure
that
you
ride.
have, mate, yeah. In summary then, so your Manchester to London ride this year will be over twice as long in distance as anything you've done in the last 12 years, and around 6 hours longer than anything you've ever done, ever.
I would say that is a decent summary of things, yeah.
In that case, I wish you all the best. No, in all seriousness, if you want to get behind Dan, and more poignantly, support the Ambitious About Autism charity, then donations are, of course, still open, more than welcome. In fact, they'll be open until the day you ride, won't it? And probably after that as well, when the video goes up.
Yeah.
So we will leave the link in the description below for now.
And if there's any specific content that you would like to see from me or us between now and then, please let us know in the comment section below. We've got a plan in place, but we're also very open to suggestions.
And now it's time for Cycling Shorts.
Cycling Shorts now are going to start with some good news from New York City. So they implemented a congestion charge a few weeks ago in order to try and reduce motor vehicle traffic and improve air quality in lower Manhattan. But the early stats show that the reduction in vehicle traffic has seen a significant drop in pedestrian injuries.
Down 27% on injuries sustained in the same period in 2023 and 51% less than the same period last year.
That is excellent news, isn't it? Now, interestingly, after that point that you made in last week's show about certainly how here in the UK, cyclists were responsible for 12 fatalities of pedestrians over the last 4 years, compared to 1,955 from motor vehicles. We did have a few comments, didn't we, saying that that stat is misleading.
I did notice those comments, mainly because you were writing giant essays in response. I also noticed that. But it centred around how, because there are fewer cyclists, if you look at vehicle miles, actually bikes are more dangerous.
Yes. Now, on the one hand, I can see how that approach to that statistic does make sense, right? Cars drive far more miles than cyclists ride, so per mile, cars are less dangerous than they appear. However, to my mind, it doesn't escape, or doesn't change the fact that when I step out my front door, I'm 150 times more likely to be killed by someone behind a steering wheel than someone on a bike.
I understand your perspective as well. I think what people were trying to say is that were bikes to do as many miles as cars, if you extrapolate those statistics, at that point you would be more likely to be seriously injured or killed by a cyclist than a car driver.
Yeah, except you can't extrapolate it out because you would have to take into consideration the fact that many of those car miles are done on motorways where vehicles are segregated from pedestrians and cyclists for the very reason that they can go faster, but also because they're so blooming dangerous. And then you also have to start factoring in things like the fact that, you know, from pretty much birth, children are told to be careful of cars and that cars own the roads and we have to only cross at certain places or, you know, stop, look and listen, all these things. So actually, whilst I take it, I disagree with it. I don't think it's as simple as
that is very true. And it's not just motorways, is it? There are plenty of dual carriageways and other roads that have no walkways and you wouldn't want to walk anyway. And like you said, you are kind of conditioned to understand the dangers of any motor vehicle, whereas I think with cyclists and with bikes, you don't see them as a danger. And certainly something I found over the years training at a reasonable speed is that people can get caught out because you're riding faster than the average cyclist. It's like, again, you're conditioned to think, well, I've got an amount of time to step across the road because that cyclist will be going at roughly the speed. And when you're going twice the speed of that, it can catch people out. And I think that is why e-bikes are becoming a little bit more dangerous at the moment because they're altering the perception of what the speed of a cyclist is going to be. Yeah,
it's definitely something that we need, well, not just here in the UK, but like worldwide, need to be thinking about and dealing with. But like I say, I really struggle with the idea that bikes are as dangerous as cars. That just seems bonkers. Now, we should also say as well that this conversation comes off the back, not just of last week's show, but of some more tragic news from Italy, where another professional cyclist, Sara Piffer, has been killed by a driver whilst out training. Yeah, this is awful, wasn't it? A report suggests that she and her brother were riding on a straight section of road when a car coming the other way moved out to overtake. Our thoughts, of course, go out to her family and friends. I mean, it is devastating, isn't it?
Really, yeah.
But while it does often sound like we're surrounded by tragic news like this, I do think it's worth remembering, if we can, that fatalities of cyclists across Europe haven't actually increased since 2010. Now, that said, they haven't decreased since 2010 either, so of course more can be done, but I just think it's worth not being scared to ride your bike.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the last thing we want, is it?
Yeah.
Now, there was some interesting news from an unlikely source last week. The Sun newspaper, in fact, who reported on an ex-professional footballer, Belgian international Jelle van Dam, who's embarking on a career as a pro gravel racer with his sights set on Unbound.
Yeah, he is even quoted as saying he'd rather have been a pro cyclist than a pro footballer if he could have his time again.
I think I too, given the choice again, would still rather have been a pro cyclist, but I hazard a guess that my accountant and bank balance would disagree with that choice.
Yeah, exactly. However, you said that, Dan, as we all know, it's not all about having a Porsche in a garage, is it? Not when you can have a Rentner Porsche.
Retirement
anyway.
Porsche. In fact, in response to our learning about granny shopping trolleys being so-called retirement Porsches in Germany, Paul O'Brien sent this very cool-looking Rentner Porsche that he'd just taken to his local supermarket, which wasn't a Lidl, was it?
No, it wasn't. Who needs a cargo bike when you can have one of those? Although we should clarify that when you say cool, what you actually mean is practical.
Yeah, practical, that's what I meant. Some news of pro cycling now. Last week, the Women's World Tour kicked off at the Tour Down Under. This week, it was the men's turn. And for Jonathan Narvaez, it was a case of first race, first win in the colours of his new team, UAE Team Emirates XDR, I think it is now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Europe, at the Comunidad Valenciana, it was a case of first race, first win for Mark Hirschi in his new colours, having left UAE Team Emirates.
XDR?
Yep.
I think, or was that Astana?
That's Astana, is XDR.
I should know.
You should know. What's going on?
Well, I don't work on racing anymore, do I? Well, I do. I've got the racing
Every week.
news show. Yeah, good point. Cut that out. It'll be in.
Team UAE, Team Emirates. Anyway, he's riding for Tudor Pro Cycling this season, isn't he? If I'm totally honest, my eyes are still solely on cyclocross, at least until this weekend's World Championships are out of the way. It takes me a while to get into the swing of cyclocross these days, but by the end of December, I'm all in.
Just a little late to actually do any yourself this year,
Yeah, that is a shame, isn't it? They're all done by December.
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah.
Anyway, a reminder, you can of course watch the cyclocross and the road racing on Discovery Plus or Max, where you'll get a full season of bike racing this year. Now, you'll all be wanting an update on the New Zealand attempted bike theft story from last week, I'm sure.
Absolutely. This was a belter, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, but we had been struggling, hadn't we, to work out who the anonymous ex-Tour de France rider was. But the answer was, of course, Tom Scully. So apologies to Tom.
Yes, apologies. Yeah. Anyway, you'll remember the good news that they caught the thief.
Yeah.
Although they did get cold fish and chips, apparently, because they were mid-lunch, which I also
We've
read.
got lots of updates on that story this week.
Oh, I've been absolutely transfixed by developments coming out of New Zealand. Yeah. Right, we're going to finish Cycling Shorts by announcing the lucky winner of our Rouvy competition. So this is where you could win a year's subscription to the Rouvy virtual training platform, plus jersey, bibs and socks to go with it.
Right, are you ready? We're about to announce the winner. Can Kaya. Well done to Can. Get in touch with us on Facebook. Actually, I think in terms of giveaways, we get in touch with the winners. So if you haven't already heard from us, Can, you will do soon. Well done. Next up, Hack /Bodge of the Week, the part of the show that you can get involved with. All you've got to do is submit your hacks or bodges, or those that you've seen out and about in the street, to globalcyclingnetwork.com/uploader.
Uploader.
There's a link in the description below.
We should clarify that. Actually, this is one of many parts of the show where you can get involved with, but it does rely very much on your input.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? But anyway, there we go. Yeah, what's up first, Dan?
DeWalk317, who sent this in, Pez bench mountain stand. I love my Park Tool bench mount stand, but I was tired of bumping into it, so I added a hinge and tipped it out of the way. And yes, it reminds me of a Pez dispenser. Super stable, and there when I need it.
I love this.
I think it's great as well, yeah.
Very cool. Like, there is nothing more annoying than bumping into stuff that sticks out, and I have a habit of doing that. So this just looks amazing. Super cool.
Yeah.
A whole look at that workbench.
I know, I
does
was
it for
thinking the
me.
same thing. It's very neat and tidy.
Yeah, I'm really into that. So 100% hack.
Hard to admire your neat and tidy garage when you've just whacked into a Park Tool stand, isn't it? Though?
Yeah, absolutely.
In pain.
So yeah, this is perfect. Just genius.
Hack from me as
absolutely
well.
love it. Right, next up we got this one from Gavin. Scratching my head over how to build a sleek way to drip my waxed chain over the crock pot. That's not something that we would have expected to have heard, is it? Like 5 years ago. Cycling's come on a lot, hasn't it? Anyway, Gavin said, when I reached for a banana, voila! Found a produce basket with a hook for about $7. So, and then he says, as a secondary hack, is there enough room in the basket to store the cord and the bag of unmelted wax pellets to keep things tidy? Win-win. And that does actually look really well suited to the purpose.
It does, yeah. I'm going to say hack, even though I've got no idea what's going on here. I sort of do.
You'll learn about it, mate, over the next 5.5 months, yeah.
How much difference is a wax chain going to make over 350 Ks?
Well, it'll give you something to talk about. What? That's what Ollie and Alex like to talk about on long rides.
Off my wheel.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I am not a waxer, just through sheer lack of time. But if someone were to wax my chain for me, I would
gladly accept
it, yeah, because I think there's a couple of watts going on.
Okay. Right.
We're saying hack, right?
Yeah, hack from me as well. A couple of watts from me is quite a large percentage at this moment in time.
This is a good point, actually.
Alexander.
I don't think it's a couple of watts, no matter what you're putting out. It's not like it's stationary.
It's 2 watts to 4. Alexander wrote in to say, been seeing Ollie's retro bike frame painting job and felt a need to change my gravel bike frame to something outstanding. Gathered a few euros, about 45. Rough estimation.
Yep.
And bought myself some sanding paper, black lacquer, holographic glitter and clear coat. After removing wheels, steer, saddle and groups out, I got to work. Took about 13 hours and a ton of cursing, but here is a bling bling effect. No logos, no marketing, just pure black and glitter paint job that would please many eyes on the summer rides.
There you go. I mean, that does look pretty neat. doesn't it?
Also, it's lighter than it was before by 137 grams.
Wow, that's not to be sniffed at. That's not much less than going one by, as I learned. I think that looks super cool. The only thing I would say, right, is that, to my mind, a bike without a logo on the down tube looks naked. Not in a good way.
You said it looks cheap to me off camera a minute ago.
Cheap/naked. Well, drop me in it, Dan. No, I mean, genuinely.
Like a chain into wax.
Even if you don't want to get, like, you don't want to have whatever stuck on your down tube, Specialized Trek, then just some sticker. I mean, put GCN on there. That would make it look cool. Just needs something.
Townsend.
Yeah, put Townsend on if you like.
Remember them?
I do, yeah. Put no logo on there.
Yeah.
I don't know, that would be my mind, but this does look very cool, and I'm very impressed.
I'd say it looks very cool without the logos.
You can't really see it.
What do you mean?
You can't, like, you need to see that, like, side-on profile.
I've got enough of a gist from this that it looks good. I'm saying hack.
All right. I mean, I'm going to say hack as well, but let it be known.
It's a cheap hack.
I'd much rather there was a sticker on there. Okay, next up, we've got. Excuse me. Next up.
He's worried about the comments about a cheap bike now.
I am. Mayo for Sam said, seen on Instagram, so tried making my own. Butchered an old rusty bike, only fit for a scrap heap, and a wee lick of paint, and there you go. Most would agree it's a fine addition to any household. But somehow the missus wouldn't agree. I mean, talking about things that you bump into, I sort of feel like this might be the kind of thing that you bump into your bike when you're on the loo.
Yeah. After you've done a number 2, stand up.
Exactly, yeah.
Whack the chain ring with your head.
Yeah.
I would describe these suspension forks that are holding the bog roll as naked. /
Yeah, that's true, actually.
I mean, that was kind of written in the description, but I think I'm going to say Bodge. I just don't think it looks tidy enough.
Are we talking about the bike hanging over the loo?
No, I'm talking about the loo roll holder.
Just the loo roll holder. Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like those brakes need to do something. Like...
Do one.
Control the loo roll or something like that.
What's like, you just pull it down and stop them?
Yeah, something like that.
It'd be quite good for when your kids start pulling the loo roll all over the place that you've just got... Put the brakes on.
Put a brake, yeah. No, I like it, actually, to be fair, mate. I think that's quite cool.
Okay. Well,
it's the bike hanging
Bodge.
over the loo that I sort of feel a little bit like,
Okay, so you're going hack for the loo roll holder, I'm going Bodge, and you're going Bodge for that hanging bike over the toilet.
Yes, I am, yeah.
Cool. Clear as mud. Right, don't forget to keep getting your submissions in. Link, as we said, is in the description below.
It's time now for Caption Competition, that part of the show where you get a chance to get your hands on a coveted GCN Camelback water bottle. All you got to do is put a witty caption in the comment section down below that relates to a photo that we will give you in just 1 second after we've tackled the issue of results from last week and who has won this week's bottle.
This was the photo from last week's show at the end of the Women's Santos Tour Down Under. This is Swiss champion Naomi Rugg, who was successful in winning the race, with her teammate behind her, which makes her look like she's got a very small POC helmet resting atop her head. The winner this week is ActaVolga6649, who put caption, EF pulls the Rugg out from under the peloton.
That is good.
Very good indeed.
I like that very much.
ActaVolga, that means like chasing group, doesn't it, in Flemish or Dutch? You see that on the screen.
That's true, actually, yes. I think you're right.
ActaVolgas.
Yeah. It's funny what random words of Flemish that you end up learning.
Yeah.
Beloften is always the one that's stuck with me. Under 23s, yeah. Yes, he's a Beloften. Right then, I thought that was very cool, that one. What have we got this week, Dan?
This week, it's from, I can't remember what it's called, I think it's the Adelaide Criterion, the criterion that comes before the men's Santos Tour Down Under. This is a Movistar rider by the name of Javier Romo, who actually won one of the stages.
He did,
of the Tour Down Under, coming across the line with presumably one of his teammates' bike. I will get you started. Could you do another lap, do you think, Javier? No, I'm too tired. It sort of doesn't work because there's probably 4 tyres in total. I mean, you're always too tired, aren't you, on one bike? So, yeah. It's the best I could do, sorry.
To be fair, mate, that's not bad. I mean, that was a genuine chuckle when you hit me with that. If you think you can do better, though, and even if you can't, just get involved in the comment section down below. We do like reading a Caption Competition entry. So, yeah, we'll pick another winner next week.
We've got some cracking content coming up for you on GCN this week, but before we let you know what it is, a few great comments underneath last week's videos. There's a brilliant one underneath last week's show, Si. It came in from Upright Squire, who said, "Geez, Si being surprised by being overtaken sounds like he could have used a rear-view mirror." To which Ian Collins replied saying, "How did they get around his ankles?"
Yeah, all right, Ian. Thank you very much for that. I mean, it is quite a squeeze on some parts of the bike path with ankles like mine, but, you know. I've got narrower handlebars as well these days, so my ankles are the widest bit, unfortunately. David Pomerantz did say the solution to being overtaken is that I have to ride a TT bike to work from now on, so no e-bike can overtake me. But why are you punishing me?
Yeah.
Why do I have to ride a TT bike? Surely we just, you know, make sure that the ban of illegal e-bikes is upheld on the bike path rather than getting me to ride a TT bike. So I'm not sure I agree with that one.
All right, calm down, Si.
Yeah. L. Whitrock did say, I believe the problem is not the e-bike and how fast it can go, it's the rider and whether they are riding safely and courteously or not. There's a lot of comments about that, wasn't it? It's not about the bike, it's the rider. L. Whitrock says, here in SoCal, we have too many people on e-bikes who terrorise pedestrians and cars because of their reckless behaviour. I don't care if they're on an e-bike or a regular bike, if you're safe and courteous. And actually, to be fair, that is, I mean, you're saying in SoCal, we recognise that here, don't we? There's a lot.
Yeah, we did also have a comment that I sent you, didn't we? Talking about how it's been a game changer for teenagers in the US who are not yet old enough to ride a motorbike or drive a car. They're using e-bikes to get to places where they're socialising, etc., etc. And there's actually an article, I can't find it at the moment, but I'd read an article along similar lines. And I was sort of thinking maybe in the US where there's a lot more space, it might be less dangerous. And at that point, of course, cycling is a great form of transport, and if it makes it easier for somebody or less of a barrier to swinging a leg over a bike in the first place, there are many positives to it, aren't there?
Yeah, there absolutely are. Yeah.
Underneath Si's video on why he needs to slow down rather than getting on a TT bike on the bike path, Smudgerio put, this attitude was a game changer for my commute to work. Instead of trying to cycle to and from work as quickly as possible, I switched to a gravel bike, changed my route to a virtually car-free one, and stopped flogging myself on the hills. Now I actually enjoy it, and for the first time, I've continued to do it through the winter.
That's super cool, isn't it? I swapped to a gravel bike this morning for my commute because it's the one I've got with mudguards. And I was late, unfortunately, to work, yeah. So, you know, I'm going to have less time in bed, which is unfortunate. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. Colin75 did also say, the fact that I have loved cycling for as long as I have shows that I've been doing it the right way for me all along, which actually really resonated because the fact is there's no right or wrong way to ride a bike, is there? It's just what you enjoy doing or not. So yeah. And you'd be pleased to know, by the way, on my Saturday morning ride, I did have a look at the view at one point.
Did the rest of the rides you were with?
Yeah, we all did. We went, oh,
wow,
that's quite pretty, yeah. Yeah, it was a really, really beautiful 3 seconds. It was like a proper good moment that we all shared. But unfortunately, I didn't have time for coffee afterwards, so I did miss out on that.
You're losing out on time for all sorts of stuff at the moment.
I know. You're busy.
We could have picked out 100 comments underneath Connor's video. Here at Rouvy, I spent a day with Britain's most notorious cyclist, but we can't read that many out. But we picked these couple. The Pooh Master. 517, interesting username. Yeah. My dad, David Sinner, was killed by a then 20-year-old woman, Amber Potter, on the A11 in Norfolk due to mobile phone use. No one should have to go through what we have because of some selfish individual who cannot be completely self-absorbed in themselves whilst driving. My father was still, to that day, one of the best cyclists I've ever met, setting the land speed record and winning countless titles up and down the country, all to be brought to an abrupt end due to a modern fad in today's society.
That's awful, isn't it? I mean, I really, really enjoyed watching that video because I learned a lot, but I still don't know what I think about. I mean, Cycling Mikey seems like a really lovely guy and his heart is undoubtedly in the right place. And he's definitely not doing anything wrong by reporting these people to the police and getting them prosecuted, all being well. But I guess the one thing I worry about is whether or not it's actually acting as a deterrent to other drivers, or is it just one of those things where it's just, antagonising? Like, what's the actual, what's happening as a result of it? Because you don't need to punish those people, I don't think. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. Like I said,
I was very sceptical as well because sort of before I watched the video, a bit like Connor, I felt that Cycling Mikey was causing more aggro, as it were, between motor vehicle drivers and cyclists, and making the problem worse in some way, like the war on the roads that we sometimes talk about, etc. But having watched the video and then having thought more about it subsequently, I do think it's like the example I gave, was it last week or maybe off camera at some point? In this country, we know we've got 10% on the speed limit. So you know that if you're doing 74 on a motorway, you're very, very unlikely to be caught speeding because you've got that 10%, 32 and a 30, etc. If tomorrow the police suddenly said, actually, you cannot go 1 mile per hour over the speed limit, and if you do, there's a £1,000 fine and you'll be banned from driving for 6 months, and they started implementing it, very quickly you'd find that there's nobody going over the speed limit in this country. And if they do, they're just stupid. And I wonder if it's a similar thing with this. The more people that do get caught, even stationary, looking at a mobile phone, the more that word gets around, like, actually, you can get in serious trouble for this, it starts to penetrate through all the vehicle drivers, and there's less of it happening, which can only be a good thing, right?
Well, yeah, I hope so. I really hope so, because there's that comment. So, you know, there are horrific consequences from using your mobile phone when driving. So yeah. Anyway, it was a great video, wasn't it? Another comment. John Eddy said, Mikey's not creating a divide between cyclists and motorists. He's creating a divide between dangerous drivers and everyone else. Anyone thick enough to use a phone behind the wheel deserves punishment. Simple. And yeah, can't argue with that, can you, I guess?
No, not really.
Unfortunately, underneath Dan's video from Sunday, what training are the pros really doing in 2025? There weren't actually any good comments, were there?
So we'll just move it. No, I've picked out loads.
Really? You found some good comments?
I found loads of good ones.
Did you?
Yeah, give me a second. Give me 10 minutes. What about this then, from Tim Farhaven, who put, Lloyd taking GCN to the next level. I like that one.
Well, I suppose that's all right. Yeah.
Marcus Nevitt, this is gold, and exactly the kind of thing that GCN can do expertly that other broadcasters just won't touch. Thanks so much for putting it together.
Yeah, right.
Rudy Duhartanto, holy mackerels, this is some real high quality video material. Kudos, Dan. I could go on. In fact, I will. Right. Rick B8, wonderful content, more please. Ross88 Matt, yes, more videos like this. Geopolitic, gold content. Goofalicious, please, more of this.
Should we say that's enough now?
I've got more.
No, I think that's probably enough.
Okay. Fair enough.
No, I actually, jokes aside, I really enjoyed that video. In fact, like, we all enjoyed it so much that we've decided, haven't we, to put out the complete interview of Jerome Swart as its own video, because there was even more stuff in there, and we thought, he spoke so eloquently, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was so open about it.
It was very interesting, yeah, they all were.
So that's going out this week as a Brucey bonus, which is cool, isn't it?
That comes out on Friday. On Thursday, though, we are putting out a video. This is Connor, isn't it? I learned to enjoy riding early in the morning.
Yeah, he said it was the best thing he ever did. So there you go. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
On Saturday, Ollie and Connor tackled a winter epic. So riding the length of Wales from south to north in the middle of winter with a cheeky little overnight in the middle. So it was proper full on. I cannot wait to see how they got on, because it sounded pretty gnarly, that.
It did. It looked... Well, one day looked beautiful, the next day not so pretty.
Yep.
Was it?
On and off road as well. That's cool. And then on Sunday, we had a bike stolen, and this is what happened next. So a bit of a look at bike theft generally, and who does it, basically, what happens.
That's really interesting where our bike ended up, isn't it?
It is very interesting, yeah. Yeah, really, like... Anyway, yeah, we learned a lot, didn't we?
We did. Right, that brings us to the end of GCN Show, 629. Thanks for watching. See you next week.